Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of the Low-Code Café, episode 107. Today, it's a special edition because we'll showcase what's coming in the next release in 122. This release is scheduled to come out on 12th of September. So this Friday already will likely launch the beta. So we are very excited about this release, but we'll talk a bit more about it in a few. In the meantime, let me do a brief introduction about this event for new people. My name is Bogdan Litescu. I am the founder and the CEO of Plant an App. And this event is something that we do for the community every week on Wednesday. And it's an event, it's a technical event, a learning event where we showcase use cases, techniques, various capabilities of the platform, or like we are doing today, demonstrating new capabilities coming out. Also, sometimes we have guest speakers from our community. So if you have something cool to share with the community, we'd be glad to host you. And as you notice, when you join, this event is being recorded, which basically means 106 hours of very good training content that is on our YouTube channel. So make sure to visit, subscribe, stay in touch, comment, because it's probably one of our more in-depth sources of learning that you can find. Good. So the agenda for today, we'll discuss a bit about the product roadmap in the form of showing you the next release, and then at the end, telling you a bit more about what's next. In the meantime, we'll hear from Dale Warner, our head of support, about hotfixes and cool stories from the community and the support channels. And then we'll move to the main topic of today, demoing the new automation screen and discussing a bit about why it's such a big thing for us, and of course, what's next. And we'll have Patrick Anderson, which is our technical success manager, demonstrate the new capabilities to us. Thank you all for being here, and I will pass it to Dale to give us the stories from the trenches.
All right. Hello. Yes, 107 hours. That seems a little unbelievable and a little hard to comprehend. We are working to make that searchable so that you can find more content, because that's probably not how you want to spend a couple weeks of your life. This week, version 121, we've previously released 45 hotfixes. We're releasing 3 more, and some of these are cool. Some of these are things that our users have requested. So hopefully it's something that might be of assistance to you. We have these 3 things. First, there's a bug fix that there was an issue on the Bootstrap 5 root buttons where the item count wasn't being reset. As a matter of fact, I have a couple, just on this stuff, I have a couple of these that are demonstrated. So, for example, what's going on there is if you select, I've got some buttons that are set up to where I can add check marks, and it says that there's 2 selected, and I click the button. At the completion of that, our bug was that it still said 2, and now it goes back to 0. So that's just a minor convenience thing, but it's certainly needed to make sense from a user standpoint. We have a pretty major enhancement going on. Save file to disk action now accepts different types of files. And all these hotfixes, by the way, you're going to see on your, if you're on 1.21, you're going to see all these hotfixes in your hotfixes list in configuration updates. So if you see this, you need this, you can install it. So what this means, and actually there's a couple of things that are useful in here. So I'm just going to, for example, create a new workflow and look for save file. It's under file management. First thing you'll notice is that save file has been renamed. So it's save file instead of save file to disk. So a little bit update on the name. But then the functionality, there's some changes, and I actually haven't used it yet. Our QA, it's past our QA department, it's working, but I'm just going to point to some of the differences, and then you can explore. This allows you to accept a file either from URL, text, or base64, and it gets stored someplace, either in a folder, or you can use an expression to store it. We've renamed a couple of things in here. So content source, file pattern, it's the same if you're using this tool, but the couple of things have been renamed, but it's the same functionality. However, depending on what you pick, for example, in base64 or URL, you have some additional abilities. Let's see, base64, your content can be stored here, but this also then allows you to store, to choose which extensions and allow them to be stored. So previously this was limited to just a few extension types, and now it's available for many. So I think if you're one of those that were waiting for this feature, that you'll find it useful and that it makes sense. And then the last one that was on the list was that we added support for narrow symbol to the currency dropdown. And so this one is just pretty easy to display, and I like easy things. So if we have a form, and I've just set this up, it's an empty form, but I'm going to add a currency field. And so what our normal functionality, if we just default this, it comes in as US dollars. And so we'll just save that and take a look at it. It shows up on the form like this. It's got a $sign in front of it. We have clients all over the world, of course, and so in this particular case, we had some people who were trying to do Bermudian dollars, and so when they did that, they were hoping they still use the $sign, and so they were getting this symbol like BMD, and I'm not sure. I think it was Bermudian.
That's correct.
So we show where you can choose where it goes, but then there's this narrow symbol. They still use the $sign. So instead of saying BMD in the currency, if you use the narrow symbol, it'll still show the $sign and yet still be in their currency. So minor change, but if you're one of those implied customers to which it applies, you can install that hotfix. Okay. Going on from there, just want to remind you that we do another event that's called Low Code Campfire. It happens the same hour on Fridays, and so that's more of a conversation style instead of a webinar style, and it's a little bit free form, but people get great ideas and get helped in that event. So I would encourage you to join. The ability to join is part of the links that I'm about to post in the chat. And I'll just add that we have one new thing on this links that are included. We've added a deep dive playlist, and we have a total of one video in the playlist, but what we're going to do is anytime we focus on a particular area of the product, we'll pull that out and create a new deep dive. And so that if you're looking to do, in this example where we talk all about triggers, and so there's that's one No Code Cafe that we did recently. So now you'll be able to get directly to that topic on our playlist. So look for that. I'll put those on the chat here in just a second. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick to talk about the new automation screen.
Okay, let me share out my screen here, and then once I do that, I will also invite Bogdan in here too, but let me just get set up.
Great, and I'll put that on the chat right now that I talked about.
Okay, so we're going to introduce the new automation screen that's coming up. So we've had a couple calls recently about automation, and it's really leading up to this that we are presenting you a complete overhaul of automation in the upcoming release. And I guess the first thing that I think would be helpful is if Bogdan, if you could come in and just talk a little bit about what the motivation was behind doing this, because it's a lot more than just automation being rebuilt. It's preparing for further changes in the product.
Sure. So as many of you in this webinar know, by using the products, the admin interfaces were based on AngularJS, which of course we all know became legacy at some stage. So the need, let's say one of the major needs was to convert to Angular, or to something that is modern, that is supported, that is mainstream. So we picked Angular as it was a natural transition from AngularJS. But the bigger picture is that being on AngularJS, we always had this constraint in terms of what libraries we could use, because nobody maintains AngularJS anymore to add new libraries or integrate new libraries or tooling. But also talent becomes difficult when you work with legacy technology. Nobody wants to work on legacy technology. So these were some constraints, but also another vector for us was the bigger picture of things, where we want to take the product. So of course, if it's Angular or AngularJS, unless it's a compliance or security team, nobody cares as long as the product works. But for us, we are preparing, and this automation screen is just the start. We are preparing to unify the admins from all our products, especially at the code and reusability level, so it's more unified experience, but also decouple it from the application. For example, on our infrastructure, the UI will be loaded from the CDN. So this will mean for the builders, for the users, it will mean, of course, the application it loads much faster. It doesn't eat up CPU from the application. So it's a big thing. But also, ultimately for us, and for our customer, it's little things or new features in terms of building interfaces or of building applications, where we are always had this handicap of using AngularJS in terms of doing new changes, taking our builder experience to the next level. So what we did in this 1.22 release that will go out on the 12th, as I mentioned, and the beta next week, we completely rewrote the automation screen. So it's although visually we try to keep about the same experience, but improved a bit. It was a major effort, and we succeeded, which opens the path for doing all these extra changes. And we'll talk about what's coming more after Patrick gets to show us the new interfaces, and we'll see what will be coming in 1.23, 1.24, based on what having done this story enables us to do.
Bogdan, just for a little bit of clarity there, I think I'm not sure if you said this, and forgive me if you did, but the kind of admin screens we're talking about are like when you're editing the settings of a form or a grid or tabs or something like that. That's what we're talking about, right?
Yes, those are the admin interfaces, and of course workflows and
yes.
entities. But these were already Angular, because these are new features. We started them with Angular. So now the rest of these admin screens will look like the entities, and the workflows will have a similar, and actually they use the same code base, the same libraries, the same components.
Hmm. And this so a lot of the feature requests on community, a lot of those feature requests are around improvements to the admin screens, and doing this is going to allow us to be able to implement more of those, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Likely some of those we've already done in this release, and
Mm-hmm.
we're going to demonstrate today.
Yeah, right. Cool. All right. Do we have any questions yet? I don't think so. Okay, so yeah, let me move into my section here. So first thing I want to do is take a look at the main user interface for automation. So let me just I'm going to switch over to, I have two screens prepared here, and I'm going to pull them up separately here. And so this one over here is the new UI, and actually I intended on this being like this. So the default user interface you're going to see when you load automation in 1.22 is going to be the new automation user interface. But as you can see here, the old user interface is still available in case you know you get lost a little bit. I don't think you will, but just in case, or if you perhaps come across a problem and you feel like it might work better in the old UI, you can just do that here by go to old view. So I'm going to keep this open here just for a second so I can compare some of the differences that you're seeing here. So when you come in and you see your list of jobs, one of the first things I want to point out here is that history is now a separate tab in automation. You didn't have access to that here, and what we've done is if you go to history, you can now see a full history of all the jobs in the system, and you can easily sort that. And of course, you're seeing a very familiar user interface. This is the standard listing interface that we have here, and you can do sorting by job ID or job name, date, and whether it was a success or fail. So if I had some failed jobs in here, I would see failed here also. So it just gives you a quick way to access all the history. And then when you're on a specific job and you want to see history, and let me just do a little comparison there real quick. If I open up the history here, so I don't have a history on this job yet, but if I did, those of you who've looked at this remember that it was not a very user-friendly interface here. The text was small, but here, if I go to jobs and I go to history, which is on the context menu here, I'm getting that same grid that we were just looking at, but it's now filtered for the specific job that I'm looking at. So the other thing that I want to point out here is that all the action buttons. So before you used to have action buttons here. Now, when you click to look at the details of a job, you don't have the action buttons here. Everything's in one place, so there's less confusion. There's not duplicative things like you could edit here or edit here. But now if you want to edit a job, you just go here. If you want to run the job, you go here and you can run it. And if you want to disable a job, you just click here. One of the things about disabling a job that I want to point out is that it's much more clear now when a job is disabled. So if I click disabled here, all I'm getting is disabled, but you can see automatically this updated over here. And that's a good illustration of the of how this is connected here. So we're doing things in the old UI here, we're doing things in the new UI here. But here you can see I still have the disabled label, but I'm also have a cross through on the name, and the job is grayed out. So it's much more clear which jobs are being disabled now. So we'll just re-enable it, and then so some of the actions are now in a contextual menu that we didn't have before. So if I click here, you can see that we have additional things like delete job and export job are here in the contextual menu, but we also now have, which we didn't before, a clone job. So I can easily just click here to clone this job. And I'm actually just going to real quick go through this so I can talk a little bit about the details here of doing this. So I'm going to create user when a manager is added. So this is a very simple, what I've created here is, and we're not going to look at that, but it's a very simple project management application. So I have it so that when a new customer is created, we're automatically adding a user to the system. And now I'm going to do the same thing for when a manager is created. So scroll down here, and we're going to look at the triggers. Now, so at this point, I'm just going to move into talking a little bit about the user interface of actually of jobs and to create and edit user interface. And one of the things I want to point out is that all the help text is now in Tooltips. So you can access that by clicking on the tooltip icons that are when you see them. And this frees up a lot of space and makes everything more compact. So when you were looking at the editing of a job previously, you can see that for all this space that takes up, we've now compacted it down to this, and most of that is because we've moved our help text into Tooltips. And you can still, you can copy stuff here. So if I wanted to say I wanted to use this token, I can come here and I can copy it and I can use that token. So it still has all the usability we had before, but just in a more compact way. And it makes everything less cluttered. So adding triggers and actions is now done in a pop-up, and you're familiar with this from creating workflows. So this is how you add actions to workflows. And so in automation, we now have it so that when you add a trigger or an action, it opens a pop-up. And something that that is also additional here with triggers is before, with triggers, you couldn't actually do a search to find the trigger you want, but now you can actually type something and get the trigger you're looking for. So if I typed insert, I can get on database insert trigger. So I already have my trigger here, so I'm not going to add it in. So let me just go ahead and I'm going to make this edit here. So with the previous job, I was monitoring the customer table, but now I'm going to monitor the app.project manager table. Now let me just go back and collapse this. The next thing I wanted to show you is that I can, for both triggers and actions, I can do an expand all, which doesn't show you much there, but if I go to actions and do it, you can see that that I expanded all the actions, so I can go through and see all the settings at one time. What this also does, though, let me just expand this one again, is notice that when I start scrolling down, notice here that triggers is still listed there because I still have a trigger here. And if this was a trigger with more settings, which some triggers do have more settings, I would still be seeing all the trigger settings here. But as I scroll down, notice now that triggers is disappearing, and now I have my actions. And now I can scroll down, and I still can see that I'm in actions and I'm in the create user action. This is all so much more friendly than what we had before, where if I start scrolling down and I get to here, I guess from the context I can tell I'm in my email action, but I don't actually see the name of the action here. So the other really cool thing about this that I want to demo for you is that if I say I want to, well, for one thing, the add action and import action buttons remain viewable, so I can know exactly where I need to go to add an action. Whereas here, with that expanded, I have to go down to the bottom and add the action. So I have those right here, and I'm going to add an execute actions action here, and then scroll down to that. I'm going to add an action to that. Actually, I'm going to just pull it up a little bit here. I'll put it right there. And I'm going to add another execute actions. And this time I'll choose, let's say for each list entry. And then I'll add an action here. I think probably by this point you can see where I'm going with this, but I'm going to do it anyway. So here I add an execute actions. And so now as I scroll down, you can see that I am in this execute actions. And now I'm in this execute actions for each list entry action. And now I'm in the execute actions. Let me just put another one here. We'll just do create update tokens. And you can see that all my actions are stacked there, so I can see the exact path of the action that I'm editing. So I'm excited about this because I know that sometimes when we create complex applications, we do a lot of stacking like this, and this is very, very useful to be able to know exactly where you are in the action stack. The other thing I wanted to point out too is that with any of these, so let's say at this level right here, let's say I add an action here, and let's choose a run SQL query action. If I come down here and I add an on error action, let's say I want to send an email, and I expand that, the on error actions also have a sticky header on them as well. Okay, so I am going to scroll back up here, and we're going to remove that entire stack. I don't want that there, and we'll go ahead and collapse it. Okay, so a question, and it's a great question, Jim. I'm happy you asked it. For everyone, that's can you drag an action from one execute action to a different execution stack? And the answer for right now is no. But when we start talking about things that are coming ahead, it's something that we want to do. So for now, Jim, the answer is no, but hopefully we'll get there. Okay, so then let me just check in on where I am here. And yes, I already mentioned this, that we always have access to those buttons there. So the other thing that about creating more less clutter and making things more compact that I want to point out is that notice that when for like the create user action here, immediately when I get into the list of inputs, I'm getting right into what the create user action is about. When I look at the, let me add that back in. When I look at the send email action, when I look at the send email action, you can see that I'm getting immediately into what the send email action is about. The credentials for the SMTP server, the from to lines. So what's changed here is that we used to have a description entry, which is common to all actions, and we've moved that up in the title bar here. And if you recall, when you would type a description before, so see, as I'm typing, I'm getting that in the title bar anyway, but so now we simply put the input into the title bar. So when you're typing, you're putting it into the title bar, and you're not typing in one place and seeing it appear in another like you are over here. Additionally, so conditions are the other thing that are common to every action. So we've moved that into the title bar as well. So if I go over here and I click on edit condition, you can see now that we have the condition editing is in a pop-up. This is actually in preparation for something that's going to come in the future, which is going to be really cool, and that is an expression builder. So what we want to end up putting here is a way for you to have assistance with building the expression, and that comes with being able to automatically look up tokens and to build your logic, all with assistance from an editor. So I think Bogdan might talk about that a little bit more later, but I'll just cancel on that now. So that's how you put conditions in. And then, so we, of course, the disable action button is still here. This one here is a very cool thing. So I'm going to clean up a little bit here. We'll delete Patrick, this one. Yep.
I think it's worth mentioning that we didn't have a disable action button. So that's a new feature.
Yes, thank you. And I did have that on my list here. Yep, and yep. Thank you for pointing out though. Yes, so previously, if you wanted to disable an action, you actually had to go into the conditions and put a false value into the condition to disable an action. But now you can disable an action just simply by clicking disable, and so you don't have to go in and edit and put in a false value. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question. When you put in a condition, how does that show on the bar?
Oh, yes. Thank you. Yep, that's another good one. So if I actually put in a condition here, and let's say I want to do user ID greater than 0, and I save that. So now I'm seeing very clearly with a colored label here, so it shows up really nicely that it's being executed conditionally, and all I have to do to see what that condition is mouse over the information icon, and you can see exactly the condition that you put in. Thank you, Dale.
Oh, sure. That we're getting a little bit of feedback about needing to see the actions, and I'm hoping that will answer the question that it's easy to see. But it's also helps move it out of the way.
Yep. Excellent. And do we have any other questions? Nope. I guess we're good to go right now. Okay. So then
you were doing, I think, copy action.
Yes. So the copy action. So if I want to, let's take a look. I'm just going to expand this back out here a little bit. I think we've shown quite a bit of the difference there, but I'll leave that here some so we can take a look at it if we need to. So I'm going to copy this create user action here. So if I do that and click copy, before we had to click export, copy what was in the export, and then do the import. But it's already on my clipboard now. So all I have to do is come here and do import action, and just paste it in and import. Now, of course, if I was going to import into the same action stack, I could just use the clone option. But you know, it makes it very clear that in that the export option is still here. So if I come to the contextual menu, export's located here now, and if I click export, this is what I had to do before. I would click export and then copy. But now we have it so that you can just copy the text of the action just with one click. But this is also still useful. Let's say you wanted to export the action, but you want to make some edits to it before you do the import. So you can do that now, and then copy it. Okay, so I'll cancel that, and so we already looked at the contextual menu. Clone is there in the contextual menu, and delete action is in the contextual menu. So we've covered the new copy action. I'm just looking through all the things that I wanted to make sure we cover here. Okay, yep. Okay, so I'm going to use the collapse all option here and pull everything down, and I'm just going to do a little bit of cleanup. So that's already deleted. I don't want this to be disabled, so we're going to re-enable that one. And that's deleted, and we are going to delete this one. So just go here, delete action. And to complete my creation of an alternate create user here, so I'm monitoring the app.project manager, and here nothing else needs to change here because I have the same email, first name and last name properties, and the one thing I need to do is change this so that I do need to delete this because I need to use a different action. So we will go here, and I'm going to add partially update project manager, and I'll call that add user to I just say PM. New parameter, we're going to choose user, and the property value is going to be, and we can just use the, well, I'll just come up here and get the, the new user ID token here is what I want. And I just wanted to show you that, that you can get that there. Okay, so then that is the ID of the user I want to add to the project manager. And this is all set now. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Okay, so now we have create user when a manager is added, and I should have cleaned up the title there, but that's okay. So now I'm going to go back into one of these. We're going to edit this, and now what I wanted to show you is that so my list of actions here.
It took you to the old UI.
Yeah, it did. It took me to the old UI. Yep. Let's go back to the new UI and edit this one. And so in my list of actions here, notice that I have check marks as I'm mousing over the actions. So I can check mark them, and as I'm doing that, notice that I have a delete actions button here. So we'll go ahead and unselect both of those, and I'm going to keep that one there and delete that action. So it's marked for deletion now. Of course, it does not officially delete it until I save. So this is handy. So if I had multiple things I wanted to delete, I could do it with one action here. But I want to make a note that this is what it does right now. But these checkboxes, as we move forward, are going to have further things that you can do when you check mark them. So I just want to make sure that you know that we have more plans for the selection of these. Okay, so now there's a lot of other changes in specific actions. I just want to highlight a few of them. One of them is that I'm going to add an action here, and I'm going to create PDF. Let me just type PDF. I didn't get the name of the action right. So generate PDF, that's right. And I wanted to show you that we have a new HTML editor that in anywhere where we have an HTML editor, like the send email action, you have this new HTML editor with significantly better features than the HTML editor we had before. So I wanted to point that out. And the other one I wanted to point out is that if I put in, let's say well, I just go right here. This is where I'm going to find exactly what I want. So let's say I wanted to execute JavaScript. In the execute JavaScript action and others like that, the SQL action, whereas before we just had a plain text box, we now have a code editor that will do things like, so I can, I put in a squiggly bracket, it automatically closes it for me. If I put in a quote, it closes it for me. So it helps you with your syntax as you're typing here, and before it was just plain text. Dale or Bogdan, do you think there's additional things that I missed that should be highlighted? Anything else you want to point out?
I think when you add a new action, so if you can click add action and pick any action, you see that you are, so add any action. You see that you are focused inside the description, and it says untitled action. We purposely wanted to make that annoying because as a best practice, and we see it everywhere, our customers use it as well, we use it as well, is to name actions. So when you scan the list, you can easily understand what it is about. So if you are going to see untitled actions all over the place, you already know that you haven't documented stuff for yourself to get back at later.
And before it was just a field called description, and it was something that I saw many people would just skip over this. So it does really help with documentation.
Yep. So I think that's a neat feature, and the fact that it's already focused when you add a new action, you can just start typing, right? You don't have to do an additional click. The help text inside the action, I think Patrick already showed, so we compacted it there. What else didn't we show? I think maybe add one of those Razor actions, because I think Razor even has autocomplete. I think that will be a cool one to show. So if you open the C# mode, so at and the square bracket and brackets, and at the symbol.
Yep.
Then I mean you do get autocomplete if you access something, but I'm not sure how to trigger it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I actually wasn't aware of that, so that's good.
So you get autocomplete. I think even in JavaScript we have autocomplete, or if not, because this is using, and I think it's worth mentioning, is using Monaco editor, which is basically the web-based version of Visual Studio Code. No, so you have it has lots of capabilities and provides a similar Visual Studio kind of editing experience. Maybe go inside Razor and start a tag, like outside in the HTML. Let's see if it does complete on HTML. Maybe, yeah. Okay. We'll have to review that, but these capabilities, this kind of capabilities will be built in.
Okay. Okay, so any other questions?
Well, just for me personally, I know that there's been, you mentioned on the email template, the better editor is one of the features of that, a lot less automatic styling. With that editor, I know that we had issues where we had a ton of HTML that got generated, and I'm just wondering if it's that kind of accidentally. Do you happen to know?
Oh, like if you do a paste in.
Yeah.
I mean, because this right here, this is very straightforward. So I think one thing I wish that source code was a little bit more accessible, and maybe that's a configuration change we can make. But if I go tools, source code, I mean, this is very straightforward right here. So I didn't do much extra there. But as far as pasting in.
Yep, I'm just hopeful that that's one of the things. So there's a couple of things on the chat. First of all, a feedback that copy action improvement is very welcome, and I agree with that. A question about collapse all actions. So is there a collapse all?
Yes. So if I expand all the actions, then I can collapse them as well. Absolutely. I will say that maybe the somebody might have this feedback, but if I expand an action, the collapse all button is not doesn't appear, and that's because not everything is expanded. So I think maybe there's some room for improvement there, that maybe we could maybe have the collapse all and expand all buttons be there if we have some actions expanded, something like that. But certainly
not hard once you get there.
Yeah. So but I can get the collapse all by clicking expand all, and then I get collapse all. Yep.
So next question, Ben asks about execute Razor. What language is that based on, and whether there'll be an ability to choose? And I think we're
yeah, I think that's kind of a question we were having there, that I think that the editor has that ability, and I guess we just need to look into so this would be C#. So maybe this would be, this could be automatically configured as C#. Bogdan, is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, I thought I saw
Yeah.
it when I tested it 1 or 2 weeks ago, and it was working. So I'm not sure.
Okay, and likewise, like for this action here, it would be nice if this was automatically configured for JavaScript syntax. Yep.
Yeah. Can't Razor script be configured? Can't you use VB script in there as well for a Razor action? Am I?
Maybe. Yeah. Is that right?
Some people might prefer.
I'm always thinking in terms of C#, but.
What is VB? I don't remember this thing.
Visual Basic, yeah. Yeah.
No, I was just kidding, Ben. Yes.
Well, some of us grew up on Visual Basic, so we're all right.
At least, Ben, thank you for having a good sense of humor there.
and
then,
yeah, and just letting you know, I'm working through the question and answers first, so
yeah.
I'm not getting through. I'm not even looking at the chat. And I think this is going to lead into the next.
Yeah.
into the next segment about bumping up and down the stack. So being able to move an action up one at a time, bumping it up. We didn't get there yet, but we were thinking about it, right?
Right. Yeah. It's still, Mark. We're still have that coming, but it's something that didn't work into this version right now. But like we said earlier, that redoing all this will allow us to be able to implement some of those things.
Some of what I'm seeing on the chat, I think it's kind of struggling between new version and old version, and I think when you've had a chance to play with it, maybe you'll like it. But regardless, if you're participating in beta, there's an opportunity to give us comments. There's always the ability to give us comments, but hopefully,
yeah.
And by the way, I'm glad to see all the energy around these questions and comments. So Jim asks about in the HTML editor if there's the ability to define tables, headers, and rows.
Yes, there is. So there's a whole table menu here, so I can do this. So it's very much like what you expect to see, and then that gives us a whole separate menu here that you can access. So yeah, there's lots of functionality here.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too.
And just based on the level of energy, it sounds like it'll be an exciting campfire. See, I'm going to put in another promo for campfire that we can dig in and look at this stuff live. And then I think, as Bogdan mentioned, perhaps the beta will kick off, so you get it into your hands as well. Thank you for your comment, Mark, about having done a lot. I think they have done a lot this time.
And even more than just what you see, what was happening behind the scenes here was just itself a lot of work. Even if they were to have created exactly what you saw already, it would have been a lot of work. But we were able to get some new stuff in too. So that's it's really great.
Yeah. In the meantime, Patrick, I figured out the autocomplete. So if you go to the JavaScript action,
okay. Yep.
And then delete everything and just write, let's say, console.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yep.
And then you put a dot.
Yep. And it shows me, so I can do, yep. Type L and there's log. Yep.
Exactly. Yep.
So
yep. I was mistaken. We have it for the JavaScript. We don't have it for the Razor yet. But yes, you get all the autocomplete that you have, like the IntelliSense that you have in Visual Studio Code.
Cool. Good question. Yeah, always. Yep. Let's see. I don't think so, but this is does it autocomplete DNSF, and it doesn't. But I don't know if that's a possibility that we could add in.
Yeah, we should definitely.
Yep.
But I think it matters on the place because this is the execute JavaScript on the server side, so it doesn't make sense here. I think in the execute JavaScript where you execute it in the browser.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep. And we don't have that action here because there's no need for it here. But yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right. So I think we're probably into the what's next. Because I think that there's a lot of excitement around this, and I think there's going to be a lot of good things coming.
Yep. So yeah, the world is full of possibilities, so to speak, and already lots of good feedback that we already have from the community portal on the feature request section and in these events. As you see, some of those made it in, some of these capabilities. And we'll keep adding, like some were discussed here, but some of the bigger, let's say the bigger items for us that we are working on, and some will even make it to 123. So one is implementing validation at the configuration time. So right now we do very little validation at the configuration time. You usually save it, run it, and at runtime you'll know if there's an error or not with the parameters. So we'll start with doing a bit of just a required, and then get more advanced on the type of validation that parameters will ask you to fulfill.
Like for instance, perhaps validating C# syntax for a condition versus JavaScript syntax for a bind expression, that sort of thing?
Could be as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And of course, for example, in the send email action, the from to should be email addresses unless they are tokens, right? So things like that also will get to that stage. The token autocomplete is a very big one for us. I mean, people that work with Plant&Name for a while got used to copy pasting tokens around. But of course, the expectation when a new user comes, it's a lot to learn to know where to copy paste things from. So Patrick showed it a bit, the expression builder, but also will have a token autocomplete, right? So you start writing user, gives you user, you put a symbol, and it gives you first name, last name, email, similar to how Patrick was just doing the console log. So that's also coming. Namespaces, we have namespaces in some places, like workflows and entities. So we want to make namespaces available everywhere and be global, mean the same thing in all the configuration screens. Search has been something that has been requested. I think I saw one from Mark. I think it was regarding searching inside the form, searching the fields when you have very large forms. But the same applies, of course, in a big action list. And especially, we want to do a deep search to also search inside parameters, right? Because maybe you use a token or you use something and you have 20 actions. What do you do? Right? And after that, this will likely not be 123. This will likely be later, is to easily see references of everything. So to know exactly where a token is used, to know exactly where a workflow is used, to see all the places and be able to navigate to those places. Because right now, finding these places, it's a bit difficult. Some have built queries for this. I know people in this meeting, webinar. Queries to find where things are being used, but this will be more like a visual way to find references. And yeah, just the start. Many other things will follow.
And so Jim asked, will the UI changes related to the action stack also move to other configuration screens? And that's exactly going back to what we were saying about the motivation for this is that this automation is where we started because it was a place where we thought that we could accomplish a lot, and in preparation for exactly that, Jim, that's what we want to do. Is all this needs to, we're going to move this to all the administration screens.
Yep. And we started in the automation because it's let's say a simpler interface than the others because you don't have the input parameters, so that simplifies a lot. Whereas API, form, listing, they also have input, so that's why we started with automation. And also general settings. Automation doesn't have general settings, or only a couple of ones that one is experimental, and I think one is the debug one.
Yep.
So as we've been promoting, this is a down payment on what we plan to do, and we're providing good value and giving you guys a place to give us feedback as we move on and do the other segments. Great. If there's any last questions, we would be happy to entertain them. And good. If not, then Bogdan, perhaps you can close us out today.
Sure. Thank you all for being here. I think it was a wonderful demo, Patrick. I also haven't seen it start from finish like you showed it today, so I was impressed by something that I didn't expect to make it in this release. So I'm excited about this direction that we are going, getting the builder experience to the whole new level of easier to build, easier to. And actually, it's funny because when we are looking at the automation, we started a dream list, and we went so far that we are thinking even about machine learning to suggest what actions to use, how to fill parameters, because I think those are the expectations that people have from such tools nowadays. That's the expectation that you have from, let's say, Visual Studio, and that's the expectation that people should have from platforms like Plant&Name as well. So yes, lots of dreams, lots of possibilities. So really appreciate, because a lot of this happened based on the feedback from the feature requests from the community channel. So we really appreciate also everyone being here, being part of our community. And again, thanks, Patrick, for this wonderful demo.
Excellent. Thank you.